Welcome to the podcast Talking to Brick Walls, a podcast for parents of teenagers with author and speaker Mike Donahue and co-host Kelli Dempster. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast Talking to Brick Walls, getting your child to talk to you because they want to. My guest host is
Kelli Dempster.
co-host.
Co-host Kelli Dempster. I'm so excited. Ready to talk.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. Yeah, so I've had an interesting week. I actually moved this week from Kearney, Nebraska to Minden, which is only about a 20-minute drive, but we still had to pack all our stuff up and put it in a truck and head south down to Minden. So it's been a very busy week. I just set up my office down here. So if those of you that have been watching us, yes, there is a different room I'm in right now. So this is my new studio. So new Talking to Brick Walls studio. I do a couple other podcasts too. I have one with my brother called it's called Growing Up Boston. That I have one for church stuff, and then I have one with teenagers called Monday Night with Mike, and that's with a girl named Delaney Spencer, and she does a really good job. So so it's kind of a busy little room down here.
That's exciting though. I know where Minden is, along the highway there. It's a smaller town, so that's probably kind of nice too.
Yeah, it's the Christmas town, they say.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they light it up. They light up the whole town, and actually, I've driven through there during Christmas, and it's pretty crazy. I'm in it now, so I'm right here. So
that'll be exciting.
Kelli, we this is our fourth podcast, and it's been going good. We got a few followers, a few people watching us. I have updated the website, so if you go to the website value-up.org and go to the parents section, there's more there now, and we're talking a little bit more about the class that I'm in the middle of putting together. Hopefully I'll be done with the class as far as putting it together by the end of May, June-ish, trying to get it ready for the next school year. But it's a master class on communicating with your teenager, and you can learn more information about that on our website. Go to that website, value-up.org, and go to the parents section and sign up. Sign up so we can send you an email that lets you know a little bit more about that class and when we're going to release it and how you can take the class. So yeah.
I was kind of talking about that on my social media throughout the week, is because I'm going through it like real time, first time mom of a teenager. So it's like I want to be so aware of the bricks that I'm building as I'm living my life in her world. It's their world, we live in it. So it's really cool to learn. What I've been talking about is I can learn healthier habits, like whether that's, I'm seeing so much of how my daughter's like a mini me. So like even the like the stuff that I do, she's doing too. But I find myself getting after her for that. But then I catch myself doing it later. So it's like I can learn healthier ways to control those habits that I don't want my kid to mirror. And that's why you sign up for the master class, because we can't really do it ourselves if we don't know any better.
Right.
We know what we know. So it's important to invest in that, to mark it on your calendars, be intentional with signing up.
Yeah, intentional is the word. Like, you need a strategy, right? I mean, parenting seems like it's just, we'll just do it naturally, because we did when we had kids. The few of us took classes or whatever and got prepared, but most of us just kind of we were winging it,
Yeah.
And you can kind of get away with winging it when they're 2, 3, 4, 5. They get to be preteens, teens. It starts to get a little bit more complicated, and you really should have a strategy. You really,
Right.
the earlier that you can develop a strategy for raising teenagers, the better. In the middle of it, like you're fixing the plane while it's in the air, that's kind of, you can do that, but it's tougher. It's better if you get some strategies beforehand and go into it. So that's what that class is about, is to really help, fix the plane when in the air too, but also if you're a parent of a preteen, then you can get prepared for it. So, but you've had some issues.
Put the mask on first, like in the airplane. That's what I was thinking. Like we have to put that mask on, and the signing up for classes or being intentional with who you surround yourself, what you do, like that's the mask that I like hearing you say that, like, that's the mask that parents need to appreciate. Like, we have to take time for ourselves so we can kind of look at ourselves and how we're behaving raising these young kids who are watching and listening to probably the worst parts. Like they always catch like the worst things that we say and not like the best parts. So like I think that's why it's important to be intentional with how we're showing up and being okay with like saying I need to change some stuff. Like
Right.
it worked earlier, but it's not working now.
Right. Knowledge is power. So the more knowledge you
Mhm.
have about yourself and your responses, and the more knowledge you have about them and what their world is like for them, the better you're going to be. So
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So let's dive in. What you
Let's
want you had something in mind you wanted to chat about this week?
yeah, I think I talked about this in the first episode or two, like the impact that you made on me that first time we seen each other, because I had to go drive to the school to talk to one of my other children, my younger children. And I was actually talking to my mom about this, and she thought this was so cool to kind of reframe it in this way where, one of my other kids was I went to the school that day and I went in to talk to her. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, well, someone called me dumb and then I just lost my emotions. And I guess we can be completely transparent. She was still having like accidents at like second grade, I think she was in, because she couldn't control her emotions. And so what you taught me that in that moment was because normally I'm like, you're not dumb, like you're beautiful, you're all of these things that parents we want to like stuff into our kids. But like in that moment I had to like I it wasn't like my natural thought. It was like, what would Mike do? Like I was just there, like that's what I thought.
It should be
And then
bracelets. We should get bracelets. Just kidding. I'm
Yeah,
totally.
that's another story. Like that's an anchor, like finding anchors to like keep you in the path of how you want to better yourself. But I asked her, like, reversed it, like, what do you think? Do you think that you're dumb? And she just like laughed it off. So I think with that being said, in the conversation that I want to have today, that was easier because she was younger. Like you said, it's easier when they're younger. And when they get older, you have to think more on your feet and you have to be prepared because you don't want to say something that you can't take back. And that, like I was kind of talking to my 13-year-old about this. I just envision like the words we say are bricks. Like so if I say something to you, it could lose all trust. Like when they're 13, I don't know. It hits different because they understand more, they know more, and we have to be very careful with what we say because I don't want to build a brick because I know how hard it is for these kids today, and I want to be completely transparent with them because luckily in our day, my day, we didn't have these phones to like blow up our whole world. So, I just kind of want to talk to you about like what are some things like quick on your feet things parents can like say and do without like I think we get triggered in that fear and that's like the quick response that we get because we want to quickly undo the behavior and we've been talking about that and I think it comes from a loving way but the words that we say are opposite of what our heart's trying to say. So I just kind of wanted to have that conversation today.
Yeah, language is everything. I mean, the way what you say, they're like sponges. So you've got to be very careful. My go to is um, telling myself to calm down. I think that's the first thing you have to do is when you're having a conversation with a teenager. It is so easy to escalate into their emotion, right?
Mhm.
So if they're high pitched and they're talking, and I mean literally talking in a high pitched voice, and they're intense, it's easy to match that. And what I try to tell myself, whether it's my own child or kids that I'm dealing with when I was a youth pastor, was to literally reverse that, to to talk slower and lower and like really lower an octave and then talk slow because it's kind of calming when I talk like this. But if I'm like, yes, no, I told you, and you go back, you go into that energy that they have, it's going to escalate and get even worse. So first of all, you being in control and taking deep breaths, and being able to calm down helps a lot. It helps a lot. And then you can sort of, you're trying to think through what they're saying, not just what they're saying is important, but how they're saying it is really important. Because if they're if they could be saying a lot of stuff that really isn't even true, but how they're saying it, if they're panicky, if they're exaggerating things because they're trying to get a point across. Well, what's the point? What are they trying to get across, right? So
Hmm.
there's what they're saying is, and there's what they're trying to say. Let me say that again. It's what they're saying is important, but what they're trying to say is even more important. So that's what you're trying to get to, right? You're trying to get to what are they really saying. I talked about this one time with my daughter Riley, where she was upset about everything. I mean, she was just saying a bunch of stuff she was frustrated with. She was mad at us. She was really getting angry all the time. And really what it came down to when we unpacked this was she didn't feel very smart. So when my wife asked her, Riley, do you feel stupid? And that's what she was trying to say the whole time.
Hmm.
She was trying to say, I don't really like myself right now. I don't feel very smart. Um, and when she finally was able to say that, all the other bullshit, excuse my language, but all the other like crap that was just being said to say it out of reaction was nothing. It went
Hmm.
away. And that's why I always tell parents is like try to get to what they're really saying. And they're gonna throw you off with all the crap, right? All the
Right.
reaction and anger and weirdness. But what are you really trying to tell me about yourself?
Hmm.
Bad behavior should alert us to bad belief. So
Right.
if you're trying to just correct the behavior, we've talked about this, you're never going to get to the belief. And that's what you're trying to get to. You're trying to get to what they think about themselves and what they think about the situation is really what's really bothering them. All the other peripheral stuff, the stuff on the outside, is just an indicator that there's something inside that
Right.
needs to be talked about.
That's so good. That's so good. And I love how you talk about like it is a feeling. Like it's all in all of us. It's like a feeling in our bodies. That's kind of how I practice it with my coaching clients is like how does it make you feel? Because I think oftentimes we're like so up here that we forget to listen to how our body is trying to talk to us. I think that's so important to remember because like you were talking, I'm learning this too of how we our energies will match each other's energies. So like you were saying, when we're talking fast, it's probably going to give off that same energy. Like then I'm going to start talking fast, and I'm learning that like in real life. I'm almost finished doing my coaching certificate, and we're that's what we practice is mirroring and backtracking, and I think that's important as parents to learn those tools because I can honestly say I failed in one of those moments. I think I was,
We
and
all do.
that's okay. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's so okay, which leads me to like an anchor, like we were talking about. Like I feel like I needed to have a reminder in the moments of those unexpected. I wasn't expecting to have that kind of a conversation in that moment. So like having something to remind me that I'm the adult and how I react is going to be how the whole conversation goes. And so that reminds me like a bracelet or something to like help me stay emotionally regulated so I can co-regulate with my kid.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important part of that is for parents to understand that they're going to escalate you. There's nothing like a teenager to get you riled up. I mean, you just feel like a failure. You feel, they know how to do it. They know how to push your buttons better than any age group I think on the planet. They just
Mhm.
do. And
And
so
vice
yeah,
versa. We could do it both ways. I think that's like cool to remember, like
yeah.
not
Well,
just trying to push
it's
the
funny because
buttons.
I tell teenagers the same thing I'm telling parents right now is when you're talking to your parent, regulate your body,
Right.
calm down and talk logically, talk slow, and don't escalate it. Because what you're
Right.
really trying to get to is the real information. All that stuff on the outside, the hype, the trying to get my point across, and you need to listen to me, and that kind of stuff. All of that is just uh, it's just candy. It's
Right.
just on the outside. The inside is what you're trying to get to, the meat of what you're trying to say. And when you get there and you can really have that conversation, that's beautiful. But
Mhm.
usually it takes a big conflict, and it shouldn't. It doesn't have to. You got to teach them how to communicate too. So I always say, like, if my kids start to talk back or be mean or whatever, I'll just say, I'm not going to talk to you until we can talk, until we
Yeah.
can slow down and just have a logical conversation. And that usually helps them, because you're really helping them. You're coaching them on how to have a conversation that's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit conflicting. But if you blow your top, how are you expecting them not to? Of course they're going
Yeah.
to, right? So,
Yeah.
and then the other thing too, the number two on this is, do more listening than talking. Do
Hmm.
more, especially at the beginning of the whole argument, or this conflict that you're having. Do a lot of listening, understanding, because the more you do that, it's almost like you're giving yourself arsenal.
Yeah.
Part of why I do it is because I really want to hear what they're trying to say, because in the middle of all that rhetoric and the craziness, you're going to hear what they're frustrated with. You're going to hear it. And you just so but if you listen and really absorb it, then you've got a lot more arsenal to
Yeah.
come
I
back with. You've got stuff in your pot.
I think because I am like evolving as a mom. So like that just like it brings me back to recent conversations of this exactly. And I want to just like remind myself even too is like how do we know in the boundaries? Like how do we know when we just listen? And how do we know as parents when we need to get a little more involved? Like do we just trust that our kids will let us know that? Like
Well, I think when you listen, it segues into, you can do this. You can say, after they've talked and you've heard what they're saying, repeat it back to them. So what I hear
mhm,
you saying is blah 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 blah, and then pause, because they may say, no, not exactly like that. Okay, well, all right, help me understand. And then they go back and they say it again, and then you go back again and say, okay, so what you're saying is this. All right, I get that. That makes sense. Let me add this. Can I add this to that? And then you put your input in. But now we're having a conversation where both parties are understanding, and you've already set the tenor that I'm going to listen to you.
mm,
I'm going to hear you out. So now they're going to go, well, they did that to me, so I'm gonna listen to them. But you're robbing from them if you're just trying to get them to listen to you without them explaining how they feel, what's going on.
yeah.
It's really kind of foolish not to do that. Like, you really need to do that, to
I
listen
think
and
that's
mirror
the
it back.
best part about like being a parent is maybe we don't have to use our own words. We don't like that should be reassuring. We don't have to come up with something. All we have to do is listen to them and repeat it back to them. Like, am I understanding you right? Because I think that's truly the heart of everyone is we just want to feel understood and we just have to use their words. We don't have to use our words. And if they want us to offer wisdom, we can do that too.
But
But
it's way more powerful if you use their words, because it's honoring. It's very honoring
mhm,
to them that you listened enough to be able to repeat back to them what they said to you, because it just shows you're listening. It shows that you care enough to get their side of it. That doesn't mean you agree with them. You don't have to agree with what they're saying. You just have to hear what they're saying, and then you can add your commentary. I mean, when it comes down to it, sometimes I've had to say, all right, I hear what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not going to change the reason I'm not going to change this policy is because blah, 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 blah. I'm
yeah.
sorry that's going to hurt you, and you don't like that. But after hearing you out, I'm still, maybe I can let up a little bit on this, or I can maybe not do that, but it's still going to be this way. But
Mhm,
they can handle that more if if you just say, no, it's my way or the highway, you lost them, right? But
yeah.
if you can understand, they know you understood where they're coming from, and you still have to put down that hard line. then at least they have that, okay,
Yeah.
they listen to me, and, I didn't get my way. I had a situation with my stepdaughter. She wanted a rat or something, and she went through the whole thing about it, right? And we listened to her, and in fact, but we still were gonna let her have the rat. So we, I think the good part of it was at the end of the day, she felt understood, but we were like, listen, this ain't gonna work because
Yeah.
you have a job, and we're not gonna take care of your rat. We're just not
Right.
gonna,
I think,
and
yeah, you
so
both felt understood at the end of the
yeah,
day, hopefully.
yeah,
And
and
that brings
we
up a
didn't.
maybe a hard question. Because like I hear you talk, but I also have been this parent, and I'm sure there's parents out there, they're like, well, that's how I was raised. Like, when it comes to like being seen and not heard. And so like I think we have to kind of let that go because we have to remember what we wanted most when we were getting treated like that. I don't want to say treated like that was a bad thing. I think it was a fine thing, but I think that's how we parent. We parent how our parents parented. But if it's not working, I wonder if it's okay to kind of ask yourself that. Like, I don't have to do it the way my parents did it. I can change it. But also, there's so many things that I can see myself do that my parents did. So I think it's fair to just ask yourself those questions. Is this working? And change is okay. Change is gonna happen in your seasons of parenting. Like, so giving that grace, I think, is really important.
100%. And I like what you said. Should I parent the way my parents did? No. I mean, and even if you had the best parents, you know, because it's a
Right.
different world. And
Mhm.
it's really a different world now. I mean, in about 10 years, the kids who are going to be parents of teenagers would have been raised a lot like their kids. Like, in other words, there was phones, right?
Mhm.
So this is a whole different, this changed everything. It changed everything. So, you're smarter to really try to understand, and you got to let your ego go a little bit. I see a lot of parents getting their egos all tied up in the way they parent, right? They're like,
Mhm.
I've got to present that I'm perfect. No, you really don't. And the more you do, the more you're going to have a problem with your kid because you're going to be rigid, and
Right.
you're gonna do it, the way my parents did it and stuff. And well, these kids are different, dealing with different
Yeah.
social, you know, issues. And the I the way I put it, and we'll talk about this more, and I talk about it in the book, but the consequence for not at least pretending to follow the social rules of a middle school or high school kid is exponentially different and more intense than it ever was. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
completely different ball game. And
Yeah.
that's why parents do have to wrap their head around that, because
Yeah.
if they're trying to parent the way they were parented, they're not taking into consideration the social consequences that these kids get now for not at
Mhm.
least pretending. Even parents that say you can't be on the phone. Oh, you don't give them a phone. That's okay. That's your parenting prerogative. But just know that that kid's going to pay a price for that. They'll
Mhm.
pay a price for being on the phone, obviously, like we all
Right.
do, right? But they'll also pay a price for not being on the phone socially, because the kids, that's all they're going to be talking about. The TikTok trends, and things on Snap, and did you hear
Right.
about this and did you hear about that? Well, they're going to be left out of that. And again, that's your parenting prerogative, but you just understanding that would be totally smart. Like, I talked to a parent a couple of weeks ago at this conference, and we were sitting at this table. He was one of the keynote speakers. So funny, because he's a keynote speaker at this conference I was speaking at, and he goes, he's sitting there, he's signing books and doing all this stuff. His can't get his 14-year-old daughter to talk to him, right? So he's like, he's looking at me going, "What do I do?" So I said to him, I said that to him. I said, you have to listen to where she's coming from, because that's going to give you credibility in her eyes, and it's going to give you leverage in that conversation, because it is different. It's different
Mhm.
than it was for
Yeah.
you.
I think that's the beautiful word of the day is understanding. Which kind of leads me to one last thing that I wanted to share because I think that's important to like make the connections of like the experiential part of it. But I think we've all been there. Like, we've done something stupid. We've done something that our kids are going to do, or maybe we're afraid they're going to do. So we're building that brick. But for me, what I'm learning, and just like the grace and grit era, that's what I'm calling it. Like, I've done some things because I wasn't taught otherwise. So I had this awkward conversation, like talk about moments I like conversations I wasn't planning on having, but I feel like it's important to have, and the honesty of it, I feel like I have to share. It was like just a quick ride. I was with a daughter, my teenage daughter, and hopefully she doesn't like hate me for talking about her. She'll let me know, I guess. But I'm not gonna let specifics. But and also someone else, another girl. So it's important to me to have girl conversations. And they were listening to songs and they were being girly about it and giggly. And I probably didn't agree with the words and the song. And more days than not, I let it go. And they're like asking me what I think of the songs. And I think it's important to be confident as a parent to speak your truth and set the boundaries. And so they this is going to be a different conversation. You can edit this out if you don't like it, but I think it's super important to share of like how we'd be transparent with our kids, but understand that it's different for them. Is, I'm going to say it, my cousin or my niece, so my daughter's cousin, she asked me like, well, did you do that? Did you do the things that you're telling us not to do? And I'm like, fair. That's a fair question. And normally I wouldn't want to talk about it. I think I would build up that wall but I felt like it was important because I see it in their behavior. That it's the belief. And I knew it was something I had to like talk about, even though I wasn't ready to talk about it. Parents, we have to talk about it because this phone is giving them this whole outside world. And I need to have this talk with them before they're influenced in the world so they could see how like what my values and expectations are around it, because I think that's why they mirror us. They look up to us. They want to do things hopefully the right way, and we're not teaching them the wrong way. So I was honest with them and I'm like, yeah, I did, but I didn't have parents that had conversations with me about this. Not that I don't love my parents. I love them very dearly. We're all doing the best that we can do with what we got parented with. But I had to have that conversation like, yeah, I did, but I'm so lucky that you guys get to have a different conversation with me and I get to share my experience with you. It looks different in your eyes because of these phones, but like you said earlier, like knowledge is power. And something someone told me that was so wise is you can't keep that knowledge unless you give it away. And so that's what I felt like it was in that moment, is a very weird conversation of like being called out by a teenager. I was being called out and I didn't want to talk about it, but I felt like it was important to be honest. Like we are just like them. We're all learning as we go. And I want them to think like, oh crap, I need to call my mom, not like, oh crap, I can't call my mom. So
No,
that's
I 100% applaud you for that conversation. And when parents ask me, sometimes they're like, "Well, should I tell my kids what I did?" Yeah, in the right, not sit down and glorify it. Hey guys, guess what I did? I drank, or I did this, or with boys, or whatever. But I I I applaud having the conversation to where you can say, I did do these things and here's why I did them. Because going back to what we talked about, right? This didn't happen in a vacuum, Kelly. You didn't just do these things because you were a bad kid. There were reasons that got you there.
Mhm.
And the more, and me too, I smoked weed and I drank and I caroused around with girls and I did these things. Was I a bad kid? No, I was a kid who had bad beliefs about the world and about myself. And so when I talk to my kids about this stuff, I've said, yeah, I did these things and here's why. I've gotten old enough now to
Exactly.
know why.
Yeah.
And so when you hear me, I say this to my kids, when you hear me caution you about these things, I'm not cautioning you about the behavior. I'm cautioning you about the belief. I want you to believe in yourself and love yourself so much that you don't do these things because you don't need to do them. A hungry need is a dangerous need. And when you're hungry for love and you're hungry for validation, you'll do anything for it. But if I can help you with that, if I can help you know how valid you are and how valuable you are, then you probably won't do these things. And I have no problem saying that to you,
Mhm.
and I didn't do these. I did do these things because I was looking for love in the wrong places, and I was looking for value in the wrong places,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean,
That's
I
the
think
root.
that's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, that's the root. And I think like we just that gave me chills. Like we have to have it. It's uncomfortable, but I'd rather have that uncomfortable conversation and leave it feeling so good than avoiding it or saying stupid stuff because I'm unprepared
Yeah,
and not believe them. Because at the
which
end of the
we've all
day,
done. I mean, we've all done that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so, like, I just challenge parents to like just do the work on themselves so they're not scared of it. I took notes today, Sunday, what day that means. And the message was say no to fear and yes to courage. And I think that's even in parenting, like we got to go there even when it's scary because our
yeah,
kids are going to respect us so much more. They
yeah.
really are.
And I would say this too. I would say in a practical way, especially for men, well, anybody really, when you get frustrated, there's a tendency to label your kid, right? There's a tendency to use language that puts them in a like, well, you're a this, you're doing this, and you're gonna be a this, and you don't want to be a whore, and you don't want to be a slut, and I mean, I can't tell you how many times a kid has told me that my dad or my mom has called me these names, and I in my head I'm like, that parent doesn't think their kid is one of those. They're just scared they're gonna be, so they throw that label out. But that's the most devastating thing you can do. You can't
Yeah.
if they make a mistake, you can't put them in that box. They're already going in that box in their own head. So you can't put them in that box. You've got to be careful on how you frame something. If you wear that, you're going to be a slut, or you wear that, you're going to be this. You got to be really careful on your language.
Yeah. Our words are seeds, and we've all been there. Like, so if you've done it, don't feel bad. But that's important too that I'm learning is when I do something, I feel like, oh, dang it. Going back and reproofing it, making it right is so important. We can't avoid that part.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to screw up. We're going to say those things. Hopefully, the more prepared we are, the less we have to go back and say sorry. Like, but that's teaching them something too. So,
All 5 of my kids, all 5 of them, I've had to look at them at times and say, "I'm sorry I said that. I'm
yeah,
sorry. I said that out of frustration. I was upset. I'm scared. I don't want you doing these things, and I overreacted, and I'm really sorry about that. Or I wasn't in a good spot at that time, so I'm really sorry." I mean, like you said, that goes a long way with them because they're gonna mess up too. And if you can model making mistakes, we'll probably do a whole podcast on this. But yeah, watch your language, and if you do mess up, make sure you straighten that out and let them know you're sorry. But Kelly, this has been really good.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks.
enjoying
It felt
these.
like therapy. Like,
Me
I needed
too.
to get that off my chest and felt good. That's what it's all about, is just feeling connected.
Yep. And parents out there, you're courageous, you're brave. Keep going. There's no manual on this, although there is a good book right here.
Oh,
That
yeah, I know that too.
no, and keep in touch with us. Like I said, go on our website. It's value-up.org. Go to the parent section, and there's more videos and help, and there'll be more on the way. And you can order the book if you want. You can actually get a free download of the chapter called "Hidden in Plain Sight." It's really a good chapter that kind of explains what we're talking about and why kids hide their true feelings. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Oh,
Bye.
Kelly, stay warm. It's still cold out. It's April.
I'm
Stay-
warm in my Husker hoodie because the Husker basketball boys play today in the championship game. It's like a fan tournament or something like that, and the Husker guys are doing really good. So I'm gonna
Nice.
wear my. It's nice today. It's like
Represent,
very
represent, represent.
go big red.
Go Big Red.
Go big red.
Got girl. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.